The massive warship floated in the darkness of space like a predator watching its prey below. Earth spun slowly beneath the vessel's hull, blue and green, and completely unaware of what was coming. Inside the command chamber, General Vexthor stood before the assembled war council, with his chest plates gleaming under the harsh lights. He was tall, even for a Crithian, his forearms crossed in a gesture that showed absolute confidence. "Honored commanders," he began, his voice carrying across the chamber like thunder, "I present to you the military capabilities of the humans." The holographic display flickered to life and showed images captured by their scout drones over the past lunar cycle. Human soldiers marched in formation, carrying what looked like metal tubes. Massive vehicles rolled across deserts, trailing dust. Aircraft screamed through the skies, leaving white trails behind them. Commander Zalneth leaned forward in his floating throne, his eye stalks extending to see the images better. "These are their warriors?" he asked, and his voice carried disbelief mixed with amusement. Vexthor manipulated the controls and zoomed in on a group of human soldiers. They wore camouflage uniforms and carried rifles across their chests. "Yes, Commander," he replied. "These are what they call their elite forces." The room fell silent for a moment as the council studied the images. Then someone started to laugh. It was General Kratzon from the Pelthian Armada. His three mouths opened wide as he bellowed with laughter that echoed off the metal walls. "They still use kinetic weapons," he shouted between laughs, "chemical explosions to throw pieces of metal." The laughter spread through the council like wildfire. Even the normally stoic Admiral Quexenol allowed himself a rattling chuckle that sounded like rocks tumbling down a mountain. "Show us their firearms again," demanded Zalneth, wiping moisture from his primary eye with one of his tentacles. Vexthor brought up detailed scans of human weapons. Assault rifles, pistols, shotguns, and machine guns rotated slowly in the holographic display. Technical specifications scrolled alongside each weapon, showing muzzle velocity, range, and ammunition capacity. These projectiles travel at speeds between 700 and 1,200 meters per second, Vexthor explained, trying to maintain his professional demeanor despite the mocking laughter around him. "Pathetic," roared Kratzon, slamming one of his massive fists on the armrest of his throne. "Our personal energy shields can stop projectiles moving at 5,000 meters per second. These human toys will bounce off our troops like rain off stone." Admiral Quexenol nodded her massive head in agreement. "My ancestors used weapons like these 5,000 cycles ago," she said with contempt dripping from every word. "Before we learned to harness directed energy, before we understood quantum displacement fields, before we evolved beyond such barbaric simplicity." Vexthor continued his presentation even as the mockery continued around him. Their largest weapon platforms, what they call tanks, use cannons that fire explosive shells. Their aircraft drop bombs that rely on chemical reactions. Their missiles are guided by primitive computational systems. "And they fight each other with these toys?" asked a junior commander from the back of the chamber. "Yes," Vexthor confirmed, pulling up footage of human conflicts. "They have waged war on their own species for their entire recorded history. They shoot metal at each other and call it warfare." The council dissolved into another round of derisive laughter. Some commanders made jokes about bringing ceremonial weapons instead of their standard equipment. Others wagered on how quickly the humans would surrender once they realized their bullets were useless. In the back of the chamber, a young intelligence officer named Kriva sat quietly reviewing her datapad. She had been analyzing human military doctrine for weeks, and something troubled her deeply. Her tentacles twitched nervously as she considered whether to speak. The laughter finally died down, and Vexthor moved to his final slides. "Based on our analysis," he declared, "Earth will fall within 3 solar cycles of initial deployment. Their largest military forces will be neutralized within the first cycle. Complete subjugation can be achieved with minimal losses to our forces." "Excellent," Zalnath stood from his throne with his tendrils waving in approval. Prepare the invasion fleet. I want shock troops deployed to their major population centers. Let them fire their little bullets at our shields. Let them see how worthless their weapons are against true technology. Kriva finally stood up, her young voice shaking slightly. Honored General Vexthor, if I may. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at her. She felt her skin change color from nervousness, but continued speaking anyway. In my analysis of human combat records, I found something concerning, she said quickly. There are multiple references to what humans call precision elimination at extreme range. Individual humans who specialize in long-distance targeting. They have training programs specifically designed to... Long distance? Krathzon interrupted with a snort. Did you not hear the general? Their projectiles are slow and weak. What does distance matter when our shields will stop them anyway? But sir, the mathematics of their ballistic calculations are quite sophisticated, Kriva persisted. They account for planetary rotation, atmospheric conditions, even gravitational anomalies. Some of their recorded eliminations occurred at distances exceeding 3,000 meters. Enough. Vexthor raised one of his hands to silence her. Officer Kriva, your dedication to thorough analysis is noted. However, you are allowing yourself to be distracted by irrelevant details. Whether a human shoots a slow-moving projectile from 10 meters or 3,000 meters makes no difference when that projectile cannot penetrate our shielding technology. Zalneth gestured dismissively with two of his tentacles. The young officer mistakes precision for effectiveness, he said coldly. A perfectly aimed pebble is still just a pebble. It does not matter if a human can calculate wind and gravity if their weapon cannot harm us. Kriva sat down quickly, her career flashing before her eyes. She had embarrassed herself in front of the entire War Council by questioning the general's assessment. Her face burned with shame, and her tentacles curled tight against her body. Vexthor concluded his presentation with confidence flowing through every word. The humans have nothing that can threaten us. Their technology is millennia behind ours. Their weapons are primitive toys from a savage past. They will surrender, or they will die. The Council voted unanimously to proceed with the invasion. Orders were transmitted to the fleet. Troop carriers began launching from the main ship toward Earth's atmosphere. Thousands of shock troopers checked their energy shields and loaded their plasma rifles. In the corner, Kriva watched the preparations begin and felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. She looked at the data on her pad one more time. The human word, sniper, glowing on the screen with its definition and historical examples. She thought about warriors who trained their entire lives to make impossible shots, who could wait for days in hiding for a single perfect moment, who treated long-range killing as both science and art. She wanted to shout a warning, but knew no one would listen. The Council had made their decision. The invasion was beginning, and somewhere on the planet below, she knew humans with rifles were waiting. The die was cast, and the war would begin at dawn. The sky over New York burned orange as the first dropships broke through the atmosphere. Their hulls glowed with friction heat, while people in the streets below stopped and stared upward with mouths hanging open, in shock and disbelief. Lieutenant Marcus Chen crouched behind a concrete barrier with his rifle pressed against his shoulder. Sweat ran down his face, despite the cool morning air. Beside him, 20 other Marines waited for orders that might never be enough. "Hold your fire until they're in range," his captain said through the radio. But Marcus could hear the uncertainty in the man's voice. What was effective range against an enemy no one had ever fought before? The alien ships landed in Central Park with a thunderous roar that shattered windows for blocks in every direction. Massive ramps descended, and out marched the Krithian shock troopers. They stood 3 meters tall, with armor that seemed to shimmer and pulse with inner light. Marcus took aim at the closest alien and squeezed the trigger. His M4 carbine barked 3 times, and he watched the rounds fly straight toward the target's center mass. The bullets struck something invisible, half a meter from the alien's armor, and simply fell to the ground like pebbles thrown against a wall. The alien didn't even slow down. It raised its own weapon, something that glowed with purple energy, and fired back. The plasma bolt hit the concrete barrier and vaporized a chunk the size of a basketball. Marcus dove sideways as superheated fragments sprayed through the air where his head had been seconds before. "Shields!" someone screamed over the radio. "They have some kind of energy shields. Bullets aren't working." All along the defensive line, Marines and Army soldiers opened fire with everything they had. Rifles shattered, and machine guns roared, and grenades exploded. But the aliens walked through it all, like they were strolling through a light rain. Marcus watched in horror, as his entire platoon's ammunition had zero effect. The invisible barriers around each alien trooper stopped every bullet, every fragment, every piece of shrapnel. Meanwhile, the alien plasma weapons cut through human cover like it was made of paper. "Fall back," the captain ordered. "Fall back to secondary positions." The retreat became a rout within minutes. Soldiers ran through the streets, while aliens methodically advanced behind them. Purple energy bolts struck fleeing humans, and Marcus saw bodies fall with smoking holes burned through their body armor. This same scene played out in dozens of cities across the globe. London fell within 4 hours. Moscow held out for 6, before their defensive lines collapsed. Tokyo's eastern districts were occupied by nightfall. In Beijing, a Chinese tank battalion attempted a counterattack. Type 99 main battle tanks fired their 125mm cannons at point-blank range into the alien formations. The shells exploded against the energy shields with tremendous force, but when the smoke cleared, the aliens stood unharmed and annoyed. They returned fire with shoulder-mounted weapons that melted the tanks from the inside out. Crews evacuated burning vehicles only to be cut down by plasma fire before they could reach cover. General Vexthor watched all of this from his command ship, with satisfaction spreading through his body like warm liquid. Holographic displays showed alien forces advancing across multiple continents. The invasion was proceeding even faster than his optimistic projections. "Their weapons are as useless as we predicted," Kraxon said with obvious pleasure in his voice. "Look at them scatter like insects when we approach." Zalneth manipulated the controls to zoom in on a group of human soldiers, desperately firing at advancing Krithian troopers. Bullets sparked off the shields in showers of light, but accomplished nothing. "Should we broadcast our surrender demand now?" he asked. "Yes," Vexthor agreed. "Let them hear the truth. Their projectile weapons are toys. Their resistance is futile. They can surrender with dignity or die with their primitive guns in their hands." The message was transmitted on all frequencies: human radio, television, internet. Every communication channel carried the same pronouncement in a dozen Earth languages. "People of Earth, your weapons cannot harm us. Your militaries cannot stop us. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Continue to resist, and we will show you the consequences of defiance." In Washington, D.C., the president sat in an emergency bunker, deep beneath the White House, surrounded by military advisors who all wore the same expression of desperate fear. "What about missiles?" the president asked. "Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, tactical nukes?" The chairman of the Joint Chiefs shook his head slowly. "Their ships shoot down anything we launch. We've tried everything from Tomahawks to ICBMs. Their point defense systems are too fast and too accurate. Nothing gets through." "Then what do we do?" the president demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "Just surrender? Let them walk in and take everything?" Before anyone could answer, a young intelligence officer burst into the room, carrying a tablet. "Sir, we're getting reports from multiple theaters. Something strange is happening." The president grabbed the tablet and read the incoming messages. His eyes widened as he scrolled through them. Alien officers are dying, the intelligence officer explained rapidly. High-value targets, commanders and lieutenants, all killed by single shots from long range. The aliens don't seem to understand what's happening. General Morrison leaned over to read the reports. Sniper fire, he muttered. Someone's taking out their leadership with precision shooting. But their shields, the president started to say. Shields calibrated for close to medium-range combat, Morrison interrupted, his voice gaining strength as understanding dawned. They tuned them to stop bullets from 50 to 500 meters, standard engagement distances, but a good sniper works at 1,000 meters or more. The shields might not be strong enough at those ranges, or the angle of impact is too steep for the field to deflect properly. Hope flickered in the president's eyes. Do we have snipers in position? Every military in the world has sniper units. They were supposed to be force multipliers for conventional warfare, but now, he paused, a grim smile crossing his face. Now they might be our only effective weapon. Back in orbit, Vextor was receiving similar reports, and he was not smiling. His tactical display showed red indicators appearing across the battleground where his officers had been eliminated. How many? He demanded. His aide consulted her data stream. 17 confirmed kills of command-level personnel, all from unknown positions at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. None of our troops spotted the shooters. Impossible, Krasan growled. Human weapons cannot penetrate our shields. The shield generators are designed for frontal assault, a technical officer said nervously. At extreme ranges and high angles, the projectile impact geometry changes. The kinetic energy is more concentrated. If the shooter is skilled enough to hit a weak point in the shield matrix, find these shooters and kill them, Vextor commanded, his forearms gesturing violently. Deploy hunter teams. Use thermal scanners. I will not have my officers picked off by primitives hiding in the shadows. But finding a skilled sniper who didn't want to be found proved nearly impossible. The aliens sent patrols into the hills and forests where they suspected the shots originated. They found nothing but empty positions and spent brass casings. In the Appalachian Mountains of Virginia, the aliens identified a significant human military installation that still held out against their advance. It was a forward operating base built into the mountainside, with clear sight lines over the valley approaches. Vextor saw this as an opportunity. I will personally oversee the assault on this position, he declared. I will show these humans that their long-range shooters mean nothing against determined attack. Prepare my command shuttle and my elite guard. We will crush this base and execute any snipers we capture. Kriva watched the general prepare for his deployment, and felt that same cold dread return. She pulled up information on the base's likely defenders. The region was known for producing some of Earth's finest hunters and shooters. The military units stationed there specialized in mountain warfare and long-range reconnaissance. She wanted to warn Vextor that he was underestimating the enemy again. She wanted to show him the data on human marksmanship training. She wanted to explain that some humans spent years perfecting the art of the long-range shot. But she remained silent, because speaking up last time had nearly ended her career. Instead, she watched the general board his shuttle with his guard, and she whispered a prayer to the old gods, that maybe, just maybe, someone would teach these arrogant fools the lesson they refused to learn. The shuttle descended toward Earth, carrying the architect of the invasion toward a confrontation with an enemy he still didn't truly understand or respect. Master Sergeant Sarah Chen lay perfectly still in her hide position, overlooking the valley below. She had been motionless for 3 hours, and could remain so for 3 more if necessary. Patience was the sniper's greatest weapon, and she had learned patience the hard way. Her ghillie suit blended perfectly with the rocky outcrop and dried vegetation around her. Even someone standing 5 meters away would struggle to spot her. She was part of the mountain now, just another shadow among thousands. Through her scope, she watched the alien forces begin their assault on the base below. They moved with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Their shields shimmered in the afternoon sun as they advanced in formation across open ground. Amateurs, Sarah whispered to herself. In her 12 years as a Marine Scout sniper, she had never seen a military force move with such disregard for basic tactical principles. They acted like they were invincible. Maybe they thought they were. Her rifle was a Barrett M82A1, a 50 caliber anti-material weapon that had been designed to destroy equipment and light vehicles. The massive cartridges lying beside her were hand-loaded with specialized projectiles she had prepared herself. Each round represented years of knowledge about ballistics, physics, and the art of long-range shooting. The aliens reached the outer perimeter of the base and began their attack. Plasma weapons lit up the defensive positions, while human soldiers returned fire with rifles that couldn't penetrate the shields. It looked like a massacre waiting to happen. Sarah identified her first target through the scope, an alien officer standing behind the main assault line. He was directing troops with gestures from his multiple arms. The rangefinder in her scope read 1,247 meters. She made her calculations automatically after years of practice. Wind speed was 8 kilometers per hour from the east. Temperature was 23 degrees Celsius. Humidity at 45%. She was shooting uphill at a 12-degree angle. The Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation would push the bullet slightly right. Her breathing slowed until she could count the heartbeats in her chest. Between beats, there was absolute stillness. In that moment of perfect calm, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle roared and slammed back against her shoulder. The recoil was tremendous, but she was already working the bolt to chamber another round. She watched through the scope as the bullet traveled downrange. The 50 caliber projectile struck the alien officer's shield at a steep angle from above. The energy barrier flickered and failed under the concentrated kinetic impact. The bullet continued through and hit the officer's center mass. The alien dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Sarah was already repositioning before the aliens could react. She crawled backward from her hide position and moved 200 meters to a secondary position she had prepared the night before. A sniper who stayed in one place after shooting was a dead sniper. The aliens below erupted in confusion. Their formation wavered as soldiers looked around, trying to find the source of the shot. Officers shouted commands, but couldn't identify the threat. Sarah settled into her new position and acquired her next target, another officer, this one closer to the base perimeter. Range, 1,534 meters. Wind had picked up slightly. She adjusted her calculations and fired again. The second officer fell with the same abrupt finality as the first. Now the alien formation began to break apart as troopers sought cover. They were trained to fight enemies they could see, enemies who shot from ranges their shields could handle. This invisible threat from extreme distance terrified them. General Vexthor watched from his command shuttle, hovering above the battlefield. His rage was a physical thing that made his skin flush dark purple. "Where is the shooter?" he demanded. "Scan the entire area. Use thermal imaging, electromagnetic sensors, everything." His technical officers worked frantically at their consoles. "Sir, the mountainous terrain provides thousands of potential positions. The shooter could be anywhere within a 3-kilometer radius." Vexthor slammed one of his fists against the wall. "Then search every position. Deploy hunter teams immediately." 4 squads of elite troopers moved into the mountains carrying advanced scanning equipment. They spread out in a search pattern, checking likely sniper positions. She knew every rock, every tree, every shadow. She watched the hunter teams through her scope and smiled coldly. They were searching the wrong areas. They expected her to be close to her last firing position, but she had already moved to a completely different section of the mountainside. A high-value target appeared in her scope. A large alien with ornate armor standing near the shuttle. He was gesturing angrily at his subordinates. Everything about his body language screamed important commander. Range, 1,872 meters. This was a challenging shot even for someone with Sarah's skills. The wind was variable, and she was shooting across a valley where air currents were unpredictable. She watched and waited, breathing steady, mind clear. She let minutes pass until the wind settled into a more consistent pattern. Then she took the shot. The bullet flew true across the vast distance. It took nearly 3 seconds to reach its target. The alien field commander never saw it coming. The shield collapsed under the precisely angled impact, and the round punched through his armor. Vexthor watched his ground commander collapse, and something changed in his mind. This wasn't just random harassment. This was a skilled hunter methodically eliminating his leadership. One human with one primitive rifle was causing more damage than entire battalions of regular troops. "Withdraw the assault," he ordered, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Pull our forces back to defendable positions, and bring me every piece of intelligence we have on human long-range marksmen." The alien forces retreated from the base in disorder. They carried their dead officers and moved with constant fear that the next shot would come from somewhere they couldn't see. The confident invasion force now looked like frightened recruits. Sarah watched them go and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She had killed 4 high-ranking officers and disrupted an entire assault with just 4 shots. Her instructors at sniper school would be proud. But she knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would adapt. They would learn. They would come back with better tactics and better technology. She needed to keep moving, keep shooting, keep them afraid. She field-stripped her rifle and packed it carefully. Then she moved through the mountains like a ghost, leaving no trail, disturbing nothing. By the time the aliens returned to search this area, she would be miles away in a completely different hide position. About Lyudmila Pavlichenko, the Soviet woman who eliminated 309 targets. He read about training programs that took years to complete, about shooters who could calculate mathematics in their heads that his computers struggled with, about warriors who treated killing at extreme range as both science and art. "They've been perfecting this for centuries," he whispered to himself, finally understanding what Kriva had tried to warn them about. While we developed energy weapons, they refined the kinetic projectile to absolute mastery. Krathzon appeared on his communication screen. "General, what are your orders? Should we press the assault?" Vexthor looked at his friend and fellow commander. "No," he said quietly. "We need to rethink our entire approach. These humans have a weapon we didn't account for. Not their rifles, but the shooters themselves." "One human did this?" Krathzon asked in disbelief. "One human that we know of," Vexthor corrected. "But I suspect there are many more, scattered across this planet, waiting in the mountains and the forests and the cities, invisible until they shoot, gone before we can retaliate." He brought up tactical maps of Earth and saw them differently now. Every elevation, every building, every piece of terrain was a potential sniper position. The entire planet was a shooting gallery, and his forces were the targets. Sarah Chen settled into her new position 15 kilometers from where she had started. She set up her rifle and began scanning for new targets. The war was far from over, and she had work to do. In the mountains of Virginia, the Ghost was waiting to shoot again. General Vexthor stood in the armory of his flagship and personally selected his equipment for the hunt. He would not delegate this task to subordinates. He would face this human sniper himself and prove that technology would always triumph over primitive skill. His personal shield generator was the finest the Krithian Empire could produce. It created an energy barrier 3 times stronger than standard trooper equipment. The technical specifications promised it could stop projectiles traveling up to 8,000 meters per second from any angle. "This shield will protect you from anything the human can throw at you," the technician assured him. "Even their largest caliber weapons will be useless against it." Vexthor also selected enhanced sensor arrays that could detect heat signatures electromagnetic emissions, and even the slight displacement of air caused by breathing. If the human sniper was anywhere within 5 kilometers, his equipment would find them. His elite guard assembled around him, 12 of the finest warriors the Crithian Empire had ever produced. Each one had fought in a dozen campaigns and survived encounters that would have killed lesser soldiers. They wore the same enhanced shields and carried scanning equipment that could map terrain down to the centimeter. "We hunt a single human," Vexthor told his guard. "One shooter who has embarrassed our forces and killed our officers. We will find this primitive warrior, and we will make an example that the rest of their species will remember forever." The shuttle descended toward the mountains, where intelligence suggested the sniper operated. Vexthor had studied human marksman tactics and knew they favored elevated positions with clear sightlines and multiple escape routes. He had selected a landing zone that would force the sniper to either flee or engage. What Vexthor didn't know was that Sarah Chen had been watching his movements for 2 days. She had tracked his shuttle, observed his preparation, and studied his equipment through her scope. She knew he was coming for her specifically, and she had prepared accordingly. The rocky ridge she selected offered sightlines in multiple directions, with ranges extending beyond 2,500 meters. She had prepared 3 different shooting positions and 5 escape routes. She knew the wind patterns at different times of day and had ranged every significant landmark. Her Barrett M82A1 was loaded with custom ammunition she had designed specifically for this engagement. The bullets were heavier than standard 50 caliber rounds, with hardened penetrator cores. They sacrificed some velocity for increased mass and penetration. She watched through her scope as Vexthor's shuttle landed in the valley below. The aliens emerged and immediately began their search pattern. Their scanning equipment swept the mountainside with beams of light that she knew were beyond human visual spectrum. But Sarah had learned from studying alien technology captured in earlier engagements. She knew their sensors looked for heat, movement, and electromagnetic signatures. Her ghillie suit was lined with thermal dampening material. She moved only between sensor sweeps. Her rifle produced no electronic emissions. The alien guards spread out in a professional search pattern that would have impressed her instructors. They were good soldiers, following solid tactics. Unfortunately for them, Sarah had been hunting in these mountains since she was 8 years old. She knew every stone and shadow. Her first target was a guard operating a portable sensor array. He was 1,624 meters distant, slightly uphill, with a crosswind of 6 kilometers per hour. She calculated the shot in seconds and squeezed the trigger. The 50 caliber round flew across the valley and struck the alien shield at a shallow angle from above. The enhanced barrier held for a microsecond before the concentrated kinetic energy overwhelmed the generator. The bullet continued through and eliminated the target instantly. Sarah was moving before the sound of the shot reached the aliens below. She used a rope she had pre-positioned to descend 20 meters and moved laterally across the mountain face to her second hide. The alien guard reacted with impressive speed. They triangulated the shot origin and moved to flank the position. But Sarah was already gone. She watched them advance on her empty hide while she acquired her next target. The second guard fell at 1,891 meters, then the third at 2,043 meters. Each shot was perfect, each calculation flawless. Sarah was in a state of complete focus where nothing existed except the target, the wind, and the mathematics. Vexthor watched his elite guard fall one by one and felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. This human was picking apart his best warriors like they were untrained recruits. Every shot came from a different position. Every angle was perfectly calculated. "Increase shield power to maximum," he commanded the surviving guards. "Maintain constant movement. Don't present a static target." But Sarah didn't need static targets. She had spent years practicing shots on moving game. A running deer at 300 meters was harder than a walking alien at 2,000 meters. The fourth guard dropped while running. The fifth fell while diving for cover. The sixth died before he could complete his scan sweep. Sarah was methodical and relentless. She gave them no time to think, no time to coordinate, no time to find her. Soon only Vexthor remained standing in the valley. His enhanced shield glowed brightly as it operated at maximum power. His sensors swept the mountains frantically, searching for the ghost who had destroyed his guard. Sarah studied him through her scope from 2,347 meters away. She could see his body language. The way he held himself showed rage mixed with growing desperation. He knew she was watching him, but couldn't locate her position. She spent 10 minutes studying his shield through her scope. She watched the energy pattern flicker and pulse. All shields had a refresh cycle where they dropped for microseconds to reset. It was a design flaw that couldn't be eliminated without making the generators impossibly large. The refresh rate on Vexthor's shield was faster than standard equipment, only 0 to 3 seconds every 12 seconds, but that was enough. If she could time her shot perfectly and account for the 0 to 2 second flight time of the bullet, she could hit him during that brief vulnerability. The mathematics were brutal. She needed to fire 0 to 2 seconds before the shield refreshed. The bullet had to arrive at the exact microsecond the shield dropped. Any error would mean the shield would stop the round, and Vexthor would locate her position. Sarah waited and watched, counting refresh cycles, measuring the timing. Her breathing slowed to nothing. Her heartbeat became a metronome marking the seconds. She saw Vexthor raise his scanner and point it in her general direction. He was getting close to finding her. She had perhaps one shot before he pinpointed her location. The next shield refresh was in 8 seconds. She would need to fire in 4 to 8 seconds. She made her final calculations. Wind was steady at 7 kilometers per hour from the west. Temperature had dropped 2 degrees in the last hour. She was shooting at a 15-degree downward angle. The Coriolis effect would push the bullet 22 centimeters right at this range. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. She fired. The massive rifle bucked against her shoulder. The sound echoed across the valley like thunder. The bullet left the barrel at 853 meters per second and began its long arc through the air. Sarah watched through her scope as the bullet flew. It seemed to take forever. She counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. At precisely 3 seconds, the bullet arrived at Vexthor's position. His shield dropped for its microsecond refresh cycle. The 50 caliber round passed through the gap and struck him center mass. The general of the Crythian invasion force dropped to his knees. His 4 arms clutched at the wound. His enhanced armor had cracked under the impact. Purple blood leaked through the gaps. Vexthor looked up at the mountains where the shot had come from. Even dying, he wanted to see the warrior who had defeated him. But he saw nothing, just rocks and sky and shadows. His last thought, before darkness took him, was a grudging respect. The humans had taught him what he should have learned at the War Council. Sophistication of technology meant nothing if the warrior wielding it was superior. Sarah didn't wait to confirm the kill. She packed her rifle and moved immediately. Alien reinforcements would arrive soon, and she needed to be gone before they landed. She had done her job. The architect of the invasion was dead. As she moved through the mountains, she allowed herself one small smile. Her grandfather had taught her to shoot in these same hills. He had been a Marine sniper in Vietnam. He would have been proud of the shot she just made. The ghost in the mountains disappeared into the wilderness, leaving only empty positions and spent brass behind. The Emergency War Council convened in absolute silence. The commanders who had laughed so confidently just days before now sat in their thrones with expressions of shock and disbelief. General Vexthor's empty seat seemed to accuse them all. Commander Zalnith called the meeting to order with none of his earlier arrogance. "General Vexthor is dead," he announced, his voice flat and hollow. "Killed by a single human shooter from a distance, our intelligence estimates, at nearly 3,000 meters. His entire elite guard was eliminated in the same engagement." The chamber remained silent. No one made jokes about primitive weapons now. No one mocked the humans and their kinetic projectiles. Admiral Quexnall spoke quietly. "How many command-level personnel have we lost to these snipers?" A junior officer consulted his datapad with shaking hands. 47 confirmed kills of officers ranking lieutenant or higher. Estimated total of 200-plus command and specialized personnel across all theaters. Our ground operations are severely disrupted. Kratson slammed his fist on his armrest, but there was no confidence in the gesture anymore. "We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior firepower. How can individual shooters with primitive rifles cause this much damage?" Officer Kriva stood slowly from her position in the back. The council turned to look at her, and several commanders nodded for her to speak. Her earlier warnings didn't seem foolish anymore. "Honored commanders," she began, her voice steady now. "I have completed a comprehensive analysis of human sniper doctrine and training. With your permission, I would like to present my findings." Zalneth gestured for her to continue. "Please, Officer Kriva, we should have listened to you before." "We are listening now." Briva activated the holographic display and brought up images of human snipers throughout their history. "The humans have been refining long-range marksmanship for over 600 of their years," she explained. "They didn't develop this capability to fight us. They developed it to fight each other." The display showed footage from human wars, a Finnish soldier in snow using a simple rifle with iron sights, an American Marine in a jungle calculating wind drift, a Soviet woman stalking German officers through ruined cities. "These are their legends," Kriva continued. "Simo Hea killed 505 enemy soldiers in 100 days using a rifle with no telescopic sight. Carlos Hathcock made a shot at 2,286 meters in 1967 using equipment that would be considered ancient by their current standards. Ludmila Pavelchenko eliminated 309 targets, including 36 enemy snipers who were hunting her." She brought up training footage showing human snipers lying motionless for days, practicing calculations in their heads, adjusting for wind, temperature, humidity, the rotation of their planet, even the curvature of their world at extreme ranges. "They treat this as both science and art," Kriva said. "A sniper must master physics, mathematics, meteorology, camouflage, fieldcraft, and psychology. Their training programs take years to complete. Only a small percentage of candidates succeed." Admiral Quexnall leaned forward. "But their weapons are still just metal projectiles. Why didn't our shields stop them?" Kriva brought up technical schematics. "Our shields were designed to stop direct frontal assault at ranges between 50 and 500 meters, where most infantry combat occurs. The humans engage from 1,000 to 3,000 meters at steep angles. The geometry of impact is completely different. The kinetic energy is more concentrated, and critically," she paused for emphasis, "our shields have a microsecond refresh cycle that skilled shooters can exploit if they understand the timing." "They studied our shields?" Kratson asked in disbelief. "They captured damaged equipment from early engagements and analyzed it," Kriva confirmed. "The humans are excellent at adapting enemy technology to their advantage. Their entire military history shows this pattern." She brought up more footage showing human conflicts. Soldiers using captured weapons against their original owners. Engineers reverse engineering technology they didn't fully understand, but could effectively employ. She explained, "They have fought constant warfare for their entire recorded history. They have battled each other with every weapon imaginable. They understand violence and killing in ways we cannot comprehend, because our species achieved unity thousands of cycles ago. The humans are still divided into hundreds of competing nations. They are experts at war, because they never stopped practicing. The council absorbed this information in stunned silence. Everything they thought they understood about humans was wrong. They weren't primitive because they lacked technology. They were refined because they had perfected what they had. Zalneth spoke carefully. What are our options? Can we adapt our shields to counter their snipers? We could expand the shield's operational parameters, a technical officer suggested, but that would require larger generators, which would slow our troops significantly. We would sacrifice mobility for protection. What about counter-sniper operations? Admiral Quexnall asked. Can we train our own long-range shooters? Kriva shook her head. Our species evolved to use energy weapons. We have no cultural tradition of ballistic marksmanship. It would take years to develop skills the humans have refined over centuries. We cannot match their expertise in this domain. Then, what do we do? Krathzon demanded. Just surrender because a few human shooters can kill our officers? Not a few, Kriva corrected gently. Intelligence estimates there are between 5,000 and 10,000 trained military snipers currently deployed by Earth's various nations. That number doesn't include police marksmen, competitive shooters, and hunters with equivalent skills. She brought up a map of Earth, showing estimated sniper positions. The planet was covered in red markers. Every major city has elevated positions ideal for long-range shooting. Every mountain range is a fortress. Every forest provides concealment. The entire planet is optimized for this type of warfare. The council looked at the map with growing horror. They had thought they were invading a primitive world with obsolete weapons. Instead, they had walked into a killing field, prepared by warriors who had spent centuries perfecting the art of long-range death. Our ground forces are terrified, Kriva continued. Officers refuse to lead from the front because they know their priority targets. Troop morale is collapsing because any moment they could be killed by an invisible enemy they cannot fight back against. The psychological impact is devastating. Zalneth stood from this throne with all his tendrils drooping in defeat. I recommend we initiate negotiations with the human leadership, he said quietly. We cannot win this war without casualties that would be unacceptable to our people. They'd beat us with rifles? Krathzon asked incredulously. Weapons we mocked as primitive toys? No, Kriva said firmly. They'd beat us with skill, patience, and centuries of hard-won expertise. The rifle is just a tool. The warrior wielding it is the actual weapon. We forgot that fundamental truth. The council voted to begin peace negotiations. The invasion was suspended. Alien forces withdrew to defensive positions and waited for diplomatic channels to open. On Earth, Master Sergeant Sarah Chen sat in a temporary command post, briefing other snipers on her engagement with the alien general. Her Barrett M82A1 lay on the table between them, still smelling of gun oil and powder. The key is understanding their shield refresh cycle, she explained to the assembled shooters. You need to time your shot so the bullet arrives during the microsecond gap. It requires patience and perfect calculation, but it can be done. A young army sniper raised his hand. Sergeant Chen, what if they adapt their shields? Sarah smiled. Then we adapt our tactics. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. We're not trying to out-technology them. We're trying to outthink them and outshoot them. And nobody outshoots an American Marine. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Sarah felt proud of what her fellow snipers had accomplished. They had proven that technology wasn't everything, that skill and determination could defeat superior equipment, that the warrior was more important than the weapon. 3 days later, alien representatives met with Earth's military leaders under a flag of truce. The negotiations were tense but productive. The aliens agreed to withdraw completely, in exchange for guarantees of no retaliation. General Zalneth attended the final negotiation session personally. He asked to meet Sarah Chen before departing Earth. When they stood face to face, The massive alien looked down at this human woman, who seemed impossibly small by comparison. "You killed our greatest general," Zalneth said without accusation. "You destroyed his elite guard. You struck fear into an invasion force of millions. How did you accomplish this?" Sarah met his eyes without flinching. "Training, discipline, and respect for my weapon," she replied simply. "General Vextor came here believing your technology made you superior. He forgot that wars are won by warriors, not by equipment. He forgot that skill beats sophistication every time." Zalneth was quiet for a long moment. "We will not make that mistake again," he finally said. "We underestimated your species because we didn't understand that lethality isn't about having the most advanced weapon. It's about mastering the weapon you have." "Tell your people something for me," Sarah said as the alien turned to leave. "Tell them that humans didn't get good at war because we wanted to. We got good because we had to. We fought each other for thousands of years and learned every brutal lesson the hard way. We hope you never have to learn those lessons the way we did." Zalneth nodded solemnly. "I will share your words, and I will make sure the Galactic Concordance understands that Earth is not a primitive world to be conquered. It is a world of warriors who have perfected violence in ways we cannot match." The alien fleet departed 3 days later. Every ship in the invasion force left orbit and jumped to faster-than-light travel. Humanity watched them go with relief, mixed with pride. Sarah returned to her normal duties, training new snipers. Her impossible shot that killed General Vextor became legend in military circles. She just cleaned her rifle, checked her equipment, and prepared for whatever came next. Because somewhere in the universe, there might be another enemy who needed to learn the lesson that Vextor learned too late. Never mock a human with a gun until you understand that the real weapon isn't the rifle, it's the person holding it.